Well, after that historic win by England over India in the first test at Chennai, I thought I would get the lowdown from someone who is Johnny on the spot to have a look at the way England just got away with that incredible victory. Mark Butcher, the one and only, thanks so much for joining me.
Hey Mel, it's absolutely my pleasure. Yeah, and it's sort of like late afternoon. Got a bit of an afternoon off here in my my very, very nice quarters here in Chennai, where I've been sort of quarantined and locked down. I mean, we can't even go out once the test match is over, let alone when we're in quarantine. But it's very, very pleasant, and I'm only too happy to speak to my favourite Oz.
Oh, it's probably a very short list, actually, if I think of it on your favourites. And you, of course, as everyone might know, you are the equal top most stylish man in international cricket. I maintain that. Equal top. Do you know who the other one is?
There's another one.
You're equal first with Rami Raja. Very stylish
that's fair
man.
enough.
Yeah, equal stylish.
He beats me on the hair, so.
But you probably have better shoes. How's it been for you there? So you say you're in and out, just to give everyone an idea. So you can go out of your room though, you can wander around the hotel, but you don't see any of the players?
No, the players aren't here. We're in the ITC Grand Chola, which is probably about half an hour's drive away from the ground. I'm not sure where the players are actually. And I'd you'd be loath to announce it anyway, just in case with your billions of viewers on your YouTube channel, they'll all be descending upon the hotel. So we have the bubble is unbelievably strict. So we can, when we're at the ground, everybody that is at the ground with us, from the guys like pulling cables to the directors and stuff, they're all staying here too. The drivers driving us backwards and forwards. And we are sort of cordoned off on one section of the hotel. I mean, it's like a 600-room hotel. It's palatial. I can imagine when it's fully open, I bet it's something very special. But we're sort of cordoned off into our own area. You can go down and have breakfast in one of the hotel sort of restaurants that's been set aside for us and us only. But everything's roped off. We can't go beyond that. So we're a little bit stuck. But it could be worse. It could be the beast from the east back in the UK freezing my nadgers off. So I'm quite happy to be here in the warm.
And so are your nadgers. I can imagine. They
most definitely are.
Well, you might be quarantined in there, but you've had a front row seat of an amazing test, really amazing victory by England, and you're only the second time India have been beaten at home since that amazing 2012 series. Just your first reactions really in seeing that. Did you expect that kind of performance by England?
Well, I mean, I knew England have now won 6 test matches on the bounce on the road. Okay. They've also won 6 test matches on the bounce in Asia over a different time span, but they've beaten Sri Lanka 3-0 back in 2018, then 2-0 just before they came here, and now this one. And the Sri Lanka series is a warm-up, even though it's very disrespectful to say that, but it was perfect. The climactic conditions are very similar. It's only a 40-minute flight from Colombo to Chennai. Joe Root sort of got into the most incredible vein of form in Sri Lanka, having really enjoyed the layoff from the game, and sort of, just kind of thought about and when you don't have to worry about scoring runs, it's very much easier to sort of make little adjustments to your technique because you can make them with no consequences, So he came into the Sri Lanka series in unbelievable. From the first 2 or 3 balls I watched him play, I was like, oh, hang on, that looks good. Balance and everything's just perfect. And so he made a double 100 there, 180 in the second test, and then has gone and made a double 100 here again. And so I thought that England would be competitive. The worries were always, the 2 spinners, Bess and Jack Leach. They'd only played 12 test matches between them. The pitch looked very bare, etc., etc. And how were England going to take 20 wickets against the mighty Indian batting lineup with Kohli back and everything like that, with such a greenhorn spin bowling attack? but all of the worries were, well, there weren't any worries. They scored nearly 600. It took them 3 days, or 2 days and part of a session, which was absolutely the right thing to do. You get a bit of good luck if you win the toss over here, of course, but you have to make the most of it. And from there on in, England were in the driving seat. It was a brilliant performance. I know there were 1 or 2 Australians who were very upset about England's tactics on the evening of day 4, but they could have still been batting in the morning of day 5 and still won and had time for tea and cakes around 4 o'clock. It'd have been fine.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I did say this on the show that I recorded with Bharat Sundaresan, is that one of the great, most beautiful things about cricket is declaration speculation, and the fact that it gives us all a chance to really punch on Shane Warne or agree with him, whichever way you fall on the side of that. But I mean, on that, we know that there's a different rhythm, I guess, to tests in the subcontinent, and so they tend to start slow and then snowball, gather speed. So he was getting a lot of stick. Hang
on, alarm,
COVID.
Bubble trouble.
Are you okay, dear?
It's the no ball klaxon. Did you hear that, by the way? What was that?
Are you kidding me? Did I hear it? Anyone watching this video will be telling you that I've been the whoop whoop. They could have picked a slightly more pleasant sound, like fingernails scratching down a blackboard, or perhaps a baby screaming in pain. That might have been slightly more pleasant. I can really see it going down well at Lord's, put it that way.
It was. They didn't have it for the first couple of days, and then suddenly it just appeared out of nowhere, and it's like it's screeching in our ears up in the commentary box. It's just horrendous.
Yeah. Well,
anyway, sorry.
No, that's all right. One way that they can finally get rid of no balls in cricket is if they start playing that klaxon in the nets every time they bowl no balls, and if that happens, I'm telling you, it's going to go away.
There will be no more.
There will be no more. We do more, if that's okay. He was getting a lot of stick. How did you see it at the time? I mean, he's obviously been completely vindicated. I know he spoke a little bit afterwards, just about, first things first, let's shut down the chance of India winning. And then, the next step is ensure that we can win. And how much confidence was he showing in his bowlers? Yeah,
I mean, look, I think that there was a bit of pragmatism in it. Joe Root, if you watch the way that particularly Don Best bowled in the second innings, who looked absolutely drained. He looked absolutely sort of, I think the wicket of Virat Kohli in the first innings, beautiful, drifting, spinning off spinner, caught short leg. I think the celebration from that actually just took 90% of his energy away. He was, and I don't blame him. I mean, crikey, if he never takes another Test wicket again, he can retire a happy man after that. And so I think there was a touch of pragmatism in it. Our spin bowlers are not, they're not Monty and Swan. They're not the guys that we had when we beat India here in 2012. And we know that Joe batted out there. He knew that the pitch was getting harder and harder and harder to score on. I mean, look, my view on it on commentary was I was surrounded by the Indian guys who were all very upset about sort of England's tactics. And I said, look, it isn't a great watch. I'll agree with you. I'll absolutely agree with you. But it kind of doesn't matter because England still think they're going to win the game with a session to go. They will know that they'll get loads of heat if that doesn't happen. But I think they think they know what they're doing. I'm not enjoying watching it either, by the way. It's not like I'm not sticking up for that. I mean, they scored 48 runs in 18 overs or something at the back end of day 4. But the ends justified the means in the end, and they were, and I understand it. I understand. I was trying to come up with a way of explaining it without sounding like I was just sticking up for the English boys, and I couldn't really. I mean, it's like, oh my God, are you really going to make us watch another hour of this? But I got it. They were. He was protecting the guys. He was making sure that they couldn't lose the Test match. And also with half a mind on the fact that if we get it to reverse a bit, if it explodes, which it did, we're in business. And he was totally vindicated.
Speaking of reverse, how about that Jimmy bloke? He goes all right for an old fella.
Well, it got whoever whoever the Joker was on commentary got quite excited at the time, I'll tell you that.
Now, I do have to ask you, were there clouds in the sky today in Chennai? Let us know.
No, it wasn't cold. It wasn't cloudy. There hadn't been a monsoon overnight. I did an interview with Jimmy before for the world feed, and it was one of the things. Everyone was like, "Oh, you're going to ask me about the tactics last night?" I said, "No, it's completely irrelevant to what happens today. We'll ask them about that if they don't win." And so I said to him, "You guys are going to have to sort of tactically play this quite smart, aren't you?" He said, how is it going to work? You're going to use the spinners to take the shine off so that you can reverse swing it. And he said, well, yeah, that's what we'll do. It looked like it's about ready to go, but it isn't ready yet. We might give it a go around 24, 25 overs. Bingo. He gets it in. I mean, there's one thing, knowing that the ball reverses, and then there's another in your very first over doing that. I mean, it was astonishingly good, wasn't it? Astonishingly good.
It was one of the best overs of reverse swing, I think I've ever watched sort of live. And the highlights.
Well, I mean, you're so young. You weren't around for Wazim and Wacker and their pomp, so I understand. But yeah, no, I mean, you're right. It was utterly magnificent. And again, he had to. But this is the beauty of the experience of somebody like James Anderson, is that he thinks the ball's going to reverse, but he doesn't know. So so he runs up and he aims it kind of at the wicket keeper's right foot, which is probably so far outside of the off stump, 20 yards further back, or 10 yards further back if you're a Jimmy Anderson basher, and starts it off there and hits the perfect length, sees that the first one reverses and goes, okay, I'm in. I know exactly what's happening here. And the batsmen didn't have a clue. They had no time to adjust because they hadn't seen it. They had no idea that it was going to do what it did. Jimmy did, and didn't miss. He could have been on a hat trick, couldn't he? I mean, the umpire would have been right either way if he'd given Rahane out LBW. It was one of those, umpires call where basically the umpire doesn't have to make one because he's correct if he gives it out and he's correct if he gives it not out.
Yeah.
And then he ripped his stump out of the ground next ball anyway. I mean, it's just staggeringly good.
It was, and I have a theory when the bails fell off at the end. I just think they'd been so terrified. We talked about this. They've been so terrified. They've been knocked out, that poor old off stump, knocked cartwheeling by Jimmy. And then you've got Jofra coming at you there. And they're like, oh,
I give up.
Yeah, that's it. We're done. Yeah, white flag. So obviously Jimmy was brilliant, and the spinners, was great to see for England to see Jack Leach come back after he got a bit of a pantsing, to speak, in the first innings. Don Bess didn't have or had struggled perhaps with his consistency and his
massively. I mean, I think he was blown. As I said before, I think he kind of. This is a hell of a tough place to play. I mean, all of the anybody that's played in India, very difficult place to win. You said it's only the second Test match they lost in sort of 8 years. So if you go back to the decade, fourth Test match they've lost in a decade. 3 of them have been against England, by the way.
The other one was Australia. Just saying.
I know, Pune.
Yes,
I was there for that. I was there
for that. That's right.
We were there.
We were there.
That's when you tried to poison me with diesel or whatever you were putting in that whiskey glass.
It was whiskey, and it was Jared Kimber's fault. And yes, I do remember.
Who else?
You were basically, your insides were not very good for a few days. So yes, we were both there.
We were both there. So yeah, I mean, look, it's an incredibly tough place to play. Bess had bowled, probably out bowled Jack Leach in Sri Lanka, out bowled Jack Leach in the first innings, but there was a period, or one of his last spells at the end of India's first innings, where he just looked like he was, it's kind of like dead behind the eyes, and he was sweating and just looked wrecked. And that didn't change, I'm afraid. They only had the afternoon off or whatever it was on day 4. And then from ball one, he just kind of, full toss. The thing with Don Bess is that if he bowls a hip high full toss, there's half a chance he's going to get a wicket with it, because he's not only is he capable of bowling great deliveries to get out of Virat Kohli, he's also one of the luckiest SOBs I've ever seen as well. So but in the end, Joe went, yeah, okay, but we know he's lucky, but that's really pushing our luck. We'll save up a bit for later in the series. So yeah, it was tough. I mean, listen, it's incredibly hard to play and to succeed and to win in India. Incredibly hard.
Yeah, you say that, but at the moment, Test cricket is turning the adage that it's hard to win away from home. Kind of head when you look at what's happened in Bangladesh and what happened here in Australia when you hear. So the times there are changing, and that's kind of exciting, actually. Really exciting.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So do you see England as sticking with Don Bess in the next Test? We know they're going to make a change in that Joss Butler's going back. Yeah. And Foakes comes in.
Did you just say the times they are changing, by the way? Look.
Oh my gosh, we are in sync. He's on your T-shirt. He's on my mind. I told you were stylish.
There we go. Somebody also was commissioned by Sky Sports Cricket for the last Ashes to do a cover version of the times they are changing.
Really? Who's that, Mark Butcher?
You should look that up on either YouTube or iTunes or something. Just find out who it was.
Everybody can. Make sure you go and bookmark that. The great man here. The great man. He's better than Dylan. Dylan could only dream. Mark Butcher is the artist of Dylan that Bob Dylan wishes he could have been.
I might get closer to one or two of the notes, but that's about it. Yeah.
So the times there are changing. So. And the squad, it is a changing. So what I'm trying to say is, do England stick with Don Bess, or do they bring in Moeen, who's a bit unproven in recent times, just to see where he is? What do they do? Do they rest the brilliant Jimmy Anderson and bring Stuart Broad in? You thought that might have been the plan, but it seems crazy you would think of not playing Jimmy Anderson. What? Yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, they've kind of set their stall out. Joss Butler goes home no matter what. That was written in the stars. He's going after the first Test. Doesn't matter, win, lose, draw, he goes. So Ben Foakes will come in to keep wicket in the second, third Test match. I mean, Johnny Bairstow, I think, comes back at the back end. Maybe for the two Ahmedabad Test matches. So England will have another option when he comes back. But my feeling is that Foakes will play the last three. And then, I mean, it's not bad, is it? It's not a bad option to have. If you're a young off spinner who's only played 13 Tests, is struggling a little bit. You've got Moeen Ali with a couple of 100 Test wickets, who's also, he's made hundreds in India, batting at number 3 or number 4. Waiting in the wings, and Mo's had a rough old time of it in Test matches and hasn't figured since England have been on this bit of a run, this series winning run under Chris Silverwood. But even so, I think, listen, being around the England camp for the last 2-3 tours, one thing you notice is they're unbelievably disciplined. They're very, very happy. They all enjoy each other's company and success, which it's not the be all and end all, but it kind of helps. They work unbelievably hard for their own careers and for one another. And whoever comes in, if the only time there's ever been a slight altercation is when Stuart Broad got left out during the last summer at home, and Broadie was very, very unhappy about it and went on Sky and said so. But the selectors, to their credit, and the coaches, to their credit, went, okay, we accept that somebody who's just about to take 500 Test wickets is going to be unhappy, and we're not going to censure him for it, So it's fine. It's an atmosphere where everybody feels like they can speak their mind and hopefully perform at their best. So whatever England decide to do, if Moeen Ali comes in, if he's ready, if they think Don Bess needs to be taken out of the firing line, I think they're happy. I think they're fine with it. And if the plan was that Jimmy was going to play here, having played the last Test in Sri Lanka, and that Stuart was going to play the next one, they'll stick to it. Stuart bowled magnificently in the first Test in Gaul, and we sort of asked the same question. England have just won away from home. Stuart Broad's bowled brilliantly, or they won't leave Oh yeah, they did. They left him out. Jimmy came in and took 6 for. You know, so you know, whatever they have sort of mapped out for themselves in terms of the rest and rotation policy, the team has bought into it. The team understands, and so there are no recriminations, and you know, nobody's sulking if somebody gets rotated out. And if they decide they're going to leave out Jimmy, everybody in the press will be going, "Oh my goodness, how could you possibly do that?" The team will be fine with it. Stuart will come in and probably take 6 for himself. You know, it's that type of thing.
I mean, I think it's brilliant that they have decided the mental strain of bubble life. I don't even think you can really understand that. Even the physical strain and sort of soft tissue injuries that we've been seeing in the past sort of 7 or 8 months.
It's happened in the tennis as well, hasn't it? They've kind of, you know, they're struggling to sort of the body goes a bit soft when you're not allowed to go outside and jump around properly. Yeah, and they can't do any jump.
No, keep going.
I was going to say they can't do any jumping. They can't do any. Well, some of them could. Some of them look like they had their partners with them, but there's, you know, there's not as much bouncing around going on when you're locked away.
Well, I don't think I can go there. That's my show. I can say whatever else.
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
But it's, I guess too, looking ahead, because England have got so much cricket coming up this year, finishing here in Australia with the Ashes. Australia, by the way, don't have any test scheduled between now and the Ashes. So you talk about preparation going into this series. That might be a huge factor in the Ashes next summer when it comes to preparation. Well,
I'm pretty sure that's why they're trying to keep everybody fresh. I mean, you know, so on the sidelines for this game for England, Chris Woakes, who doesn't look like he's going to play at all actually in this Test match series. So you've got Chris Woakes, Stuart Broad, Moeen Ali, Ben Foakes, got a couple of young quick bowlers in Ollie Stone and Saqib Mahmood. They've got Johnny Bairstow to come back in. Josh Butler about to go home to be replaced by Ben Foakes. England have got a real depth, and so what they're doing is that 17 Test matches in the calendar year. They played 3, 14 left, so that means 4 in the Ashes, isn't it? Starting in whatever November.
Yeah.
They've got to try and make sure that everybody gets enough game time to be kind of ready, and also not too much game time that they're shagged. So, and at the moment it's working nicely. Yeah. I don't know why that word was on the tip of my tongue, but it was.
Oh, Butch, I've missed you.
Sorry.
Don't you dare apologize. Now, so going ahead to the rest of this series, then there are these changes to be made. Do you think they have a genuine shot after this first test now? Because a lot of people were saying 4-0, blah blah blah, and then, you know, that now will India come roaring back? Do you think they have a genuine shot at winning this series?
Yeah, I do. I mean, look, you win another toss in Chennai. You know, India have got a bit of a problem now because they're thinking, crikey, what sort of surface do we play England on? We don't want to play them on a raging Bunsen just in case we lose the toss, because then, you know, I could take wickets bowling off spin on one that turns miles, you know.
Oh, stop it. You've been talking about taking wickets on commentary all the time. I've seen it.
It's not my fault. They keep bringing it up. What am I supposed to do? So they've got that. They've also got the worry about sort of, you know, England's traditional strength being seam bowling, etc. I mean, I'm not sure that they can do much in terms of the surfaces at Chennai. It'll be relatively similar, but the toss plays an important part. Now, you know, the subtext to all of this, of course, is the World Test Championship. You know, I don't know how much people are invested in this. I get the feeling in India they're quite invested. They'd quite like their team to be in there.
I think they became invested after winning in Australia.
Yes. Okay. So exactly. So I mean, you know, India lose another Test match, they can't qualify, because the best they'd be able to do is draw the series, and a draw means Australia go through, which nobody wants.
Well, yeah, for Australia. Tim Payne has been going on and on about that World Test Championship. It means a hell of a lot to him. Australia's been talking about that for quite some time. I think more than any other team has been, to be honest, from what I've seen, even in the past couple of years. So it would be unbelievable if Australia ended up going through after losing that series and being docked the 4 points for the slow over rates at the end.
Absolutely, they'd kind of be there if that hadn't been the case, wouldn't they? So I mean, listen, that could happen. England have to win 3. Now, I mean, that's just dreamland, isn't it? So no pundit in the world, not even Glenn McGrath, if he was an Englishman, would sit here and say, "Oh yeah, England are going to win 3 in India." But I mean, it could happen. It's incredibly improbable.
Yeah.
So on that score, but England could win the series. England could win the series now, because what a start! What a start! You win another toss in Chennai and make big runs again, then a series win is on. And you win 2, you draw 1, you get battered another. It doesn't matter. You're away. So it's possible.
Yeah, and I suppose that too, like not just the fact that you can't just depend on Joe Root, but there was enough. I guess did you see enough in the batting around him? Obviously, that crazy innings by Stokes, he's a freak, that man. And well, he just is, isn't he? But enough around Joe Root that if he did fail in one innings, if he didn't make any runs, that England still would have the depth in batting to be able to post enough.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, look, one of the things that England have changed since the Trevor Bayliss era has been, we want guys who are going to go out there and try and bat for a bit longer than 15 minutes. And they've done that with great success on the road. And again, if you win a toss and you bat on something that was as flat as Chennai was on day one, and the guys kind of get their heads down a bit, even if Joe fails, you can make a total. So. Sibley impresses me a lot because he's not everybody's cup of tea. In fact, Sibley and Burns are both nobody's cup of tea to watch bat.
No, I love it. It's a whole new dance move that's coming on. It involves the burn head. It's the head followed by the elbow. So you sort of combine them. It's like, how the Bhangra people tell you to screw the light bulb. Yeah. So it's like that's it. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
So look,
I think it's really impressive, by the way, that England managed to find an opener to partner Burns who has a bigger tick than Burns. That is really, really good scouting.
It is very, very good. And see, all of it is just all of England have done is just to try and play sort of slightly normal Test match cricket. I mean, it's a bit like Australia actually. If you look at Australia's bowling attack, right, you go, if we can consistently score scores in excess of 350 to 400, we will win a lot of games of cricket. A lot. It doesn't matter how long it takes us to get them. We don't have to sort of be macho about it. Make sure that you get 350, 400, 450 more often than not. And these bowls, Hazelwood and Cummins and Lyon and Stark from time to time will make sure that you win a lot of games. It's very, very simple. It's not there's no rocket science in it. And England have based their game around doing exactly the same thing. Well, doing exactly what Australia are not doing, which is take as long as it takes, make sure you get the runs, and let your bowlers do the rest.
Well, it certainly worked for them in this test. Hey, I should probably let you go and have a glass of bread with your co-commentators.
What do you think's in here?
As long as it's not whiskey, because I know what happens to you, man. I know what happens to you.
Never again. Never again.
Jared and I broke him, folks. We absolutely
Diesel.
broke.
That was not whiskey. That was something somebody had siphoned that out of a moped.
Hey, I was fine. I've got insides of steel.
Yeah.
So enjoy the next test while you're still there, and we might get you back on to have a chat during the next one and just see your thoughts. Depending on what's going on in the test.
Yeah, well, exactly. We'll find out just how wrong I've been about everything after day 2 of the next one. How about that?
Cricket makes mugs of us all, even you. It certainly makes a mug out of me. Certainly. Butch, thanks so much for joining us. And
no problem.
Do you mind asking people if they'll subscribe to my channel and hit like?
Yeah. What, do you want me to do it right now?
Yeah.
Make sure. Otherwise I'll be round with a jug of diesel. You sign in and like Mel Farrell's YouTube channel and watch every damn thing she ever does. All right.
Oh my God, it's like you're one of the Mitchell brothers out of EastEnders. All right, all right.
All right.
Butch, thank you ever so much, and we'll see you soon.
Take it easy, Mel.